Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Wieland. I'm the Associate Director at the Office of National Fellowships. We also have Bonnie Garcia-Glockner with us today, who will be monitoring the chat. Sorry, I thought I would close the door because I tend to talk very loudly. But anyways, so we're going to be talking today about some fellowship opportunities to, oh, wait, what is that? Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, cool. So today we're going to be talking about fellowship opportunities that can fund your graduate study, specifically fellowships for STEM students or some social science students that are pursuing graduate study for research specifically. So the major award that we're going to be talking about will be the National Science Foundation's Graduate Research Fellowship Program. I know that's a mouthful, so I'm just going to say the NSFGRFP. From here on out. And then we're going to highlight a few other fellowships that if you can apply for an NSFGRFP, you can take that application, make some modifications, and still be eligible if these other fellowships also align with your field. We'll talk about more of those at the very end. We'll be talking a little bit about how our office, the Office of National Fellowships, in conjunction with the Office of Graduate Fellowships and Awards, or OGFA, can help you through these application processes. And then we're going to talk a little bit just about the general timeline for knowing that many of you in attendance are juniors or seniors, how to balance these applications with I'm assuming a full course load while also balancing the graduate applications themselves and any other postgraduate opportunities that you may be pursuing. Let me make sure I can use this clicker. Here we go. And so when it comes to funding graduate school, like obviously our office has a prerogative to support fellowship applications, but there are many other ways to do that. Myself personally, when I pursued my graduate studies, I found some departmental funding, specifically in the form of a graduate assistantship that paid for my tuition. And so make sure that regardless of the institution that you are looking for, that early, when you start reaching out to that department, reaching out to potential faculty that you could be working with, that you're asking about any research assistant opportunities, teaching assistant opportunities, or these graduate assistantships, and if they come with partial or full tuition waivers. That can be an excellent safety net for you. And then a lot of the fellowship opportunities that we will be talking about could be funding in addition to that to make sure that you're not living that, I guess, stereotypical like starving graduate student lifestyle. But we want to try to mitigate as best as we can. So make sure that you're looking for departmental specific funding at all of your institutions. But then we'll also be talking about some specific foundations and institutes like Ford and Hertz that could provide funding, specific organizations or societies like the ones listed, and many, many others where you can also find funding, and a few of these governmental fellowships that will provide a lot of funding in some instances, or provide opportunities for international experiences, which could be directly related to your studies, or could be something that you pursue before you jump into the deep end with graduate study in the future. And so I already mentioned, so the Office of National Fellowships, so for all of you in attendance who are undergraduate students, myself, Bonnie, our director, Dr. Filer, and our graduate assistant, Christine, who is receiving one of those tuition waivers that I mentioned. But any of us would be more than happy to work with you on your applications. However, if you are a graduate student, above us on the 4th floor is where OGFA is located, and they would be more than happy to work with you. So just know where we're located. If you squint into this picture, you can see the Chick-fil-A. That's probably our most easy to identify feature of this building, but we are on the 3rd floor, so around back we have the stairs, the elevators. Only once did I have a student cancel a meeting because they asked why I wasn't in the Chick-fil-A. I'm like, we're not in the Chick-fil-A, but that's another story for another time. But what do we do to help you through these application processes? Obviously managing those applications, because all of these are not just going to have statements of purpose or research statements or personal statements, but they're also going to have letters of recommendation. Sometimes they're going to have affiliation letter components, your transcripts, and many other elements which we understand when you're balancing a full course load, sometimes internships and jobs and other opportunities. It can be easy to overlook some of the more minor elements of that application, but that's why we're here to help you control all of that and check in on those different opportunities. Hello, sorry, my boss is walking by. But we also have plenty of resources and information about these different opportunities. And we also have years worth of alumni and recipients of these awards that we'd be more than happy to put you in contact with. Maybe some in your specific field of study, or at the very least, applicants that can talk to you about what that process was like and how it was navigating just graduate school applications, let alone the fellowship side of things. For many students, as you transition into being an upper division student, it's going to become more and more frequent that you're going to be asking for these letters of recommendation. And we know that process can be a little bit intimidating when you're thinking of, faculty who have been teaching at Florida State or just in higher education for the last 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 decades, but we want to make sure that we can help you in approaching them. I've personally, and I know Bonnie has too, reviewed emails to faculty, to make sure that we're tactfully approaching the asking for these different letters of recommendation. But when we get into the throes of these application cycles, most of what our meetings are going to look like are weekly one-on-one check-ins where we go over your essays, your research statements, and everything, and just provide you edits and feedback on how to make major and minor improvements, just to make sure that your essays are as compelling and authentic on paper as you are in person. And we also provide or can direct you towards interview preparation. And so for some of these fellowship opportunities, they may require semi-finalist or finalist interviews. And so whether those are happening in person or over Zoom, we want to make sure that you're prepared. So the main fellowship that I mentioned, the NSFGRFP, is one of our most common sources for funding when it comes to STEM students pursuing graduate study. And it's probably one of the most recognizable because they have over 2,500 awards on any given year. So they are handing out significant funding to students. And the nice thing about this is it's one of the very few fellowships that actually provides you feedback on your application if you don't receive it. And so you can apply as a senior the year before you would hopefully matriculate into a graduate degree program, or you can apply as a first year graduate student or in the first or the very beginning of your second year. So you have multiple opportunities to receive funding. My personal opinion is I think it is a lot easier to apply as a graduate student for obvious reasons, because you're enrolled in a graduate program, you likely know what your research will be and what you will be doing. But there's no reason that you shouldn't apply as a senior, even if you have like a vague, like general idea, okay, this is what I want to pursue. We can help you hammer out those details to, like on paper, make it sound as cohesive of an idea as possible. And best case is you're like one of the many students that we had last year who did receive this funding as seniors, or the worst case is you apply, you don't get it, but you get feedback, you know exactly what you need to improve to apply as either as an alumnus before you enroll, or as that first year graduate student once you do enroll. This is just, I don't think this is a comprehensive list of this. These are some of the major fields of study that are accepted for the NSFGRFP. And if this is something that you're interested in applying for, make sure that you go on their website, because there will be different deadlines for different fields of study. So we want to make sure that we're meeting your deadline and not your friend's deadline, because as you can see, it ranges from the 17th until the 21st. This is a really fantastic opportunity for funding. I mean, it kind of goes without saying, because you are receiving a stipend of $34,000 for up to 3 years, and then $12,000 that you can apply towards your tuition. So this gives you an excellent baseline for any graduate degree program that you're going to pursue. And then you can communicate with NSF to see about like a TA-ship or a GA-ship and possible funding that you could receive through those opportunities that you may be able to have in conjunction with the NSFGRFP opportunity. This is one that we are currently getting started in recruiting applicants for. So again, I mentioned we'll send you these PowerPoint slides, so you will have the link to the application, and there is another important link later on. But this is one of the more lengthy applications that we work with. It's about 5 pages single-spaced of writing. It's about 2 pages for a research proposal, and then a 3-page personal statement, which is the longest of any of the fellowships that we work with, but we make sure that we help you break that down to know everything that you need to talk about. Luckily, we also have Bonnie, who has the shared trauma of applying to an NSFGRFP, and she would love to talk to you about that process and how to hopefully mitigate some of those hardships. Joking, of course, it is a lot, but it is extremely manageable, especially if you start early. And it does require 3 letters of recommendation. You can submit up to 5, and you can rank them by this is the professor who I have the best relationship with, or this is the person whose lab I spent years doing research at, or whatever whatever your criteria may be. You're able to rank these from most to least important. Obviously, your transcripts are needed as well. And we kind of alluded to this a little bit, and how approaching your recommendation letter writers can be a little bit intimidating, but we want to make sure that we're getting started as early as possible. So we're making sure that we're giving them enough time to write you compelling letters. And so, I mean, personally, I think it's always better if you can to go in person, to go to their office hours, to sit down with them and not just talk about the letter of recommendation. That will undoubtedly come up in conversation, but to really just sit down and talk to them about, like, okay, so it's my senior year and I'm starting to think about what I'm doing post-graduation, whether that's graduate school, internships, finding a job in the field, maybe pursuing some of these other international fellowships or opportunities to get more research experience, but just sit down, talk to them about your goals, talk to them about your resume, your portfolio, what you do have reflected in that, and maybe what you still want to have, because we don't want to completely forget about your senior year and the work that you're doing on campus. And that's still plenty of time to continue to bolster your resume before you do start applying to some of these graduate programs. And then, of course, feel free to talk to them about when they were undergraduate students before they transitioned into either their master's or their PhD program. I think it can be extremely helpful. Like personally, as a first-gen college student, it was really helpful for me to seek out other staff and faculty who were also first-gen, who shared that experience, because it helped me understand what I needed to do or some of the challenges that I might face over the next couple of years. And so sit down, talk to them, and then when these applications come up, I think they would be a little bit more willing to support you in writing these letters of recommendation once they know a little bit more about where you're going, what you're wanting to do, and why you're wanting to do that. We, at the very, obviously we mentioned contacting them early, but at the very least, you want to give any recommendation letter writer a month to get their letters together. Some may have different criteria, may ask for that early, but as soon as you know that I am even just thinking about applying to this opportunity, I might start thinking about who are your top 3 recommenders, who might you reach out to, and just give them as early notice as possible. Because if you can get them even like 1 to 2 months out from the deadline on board, then you can follow that up with, okay, so as I'm working on my application, I'll be sure to send you my CV, my resume, or whatever that looks like, and my essays as well, just to help you in writing that letter of recommendation. And it's also helpful because my background is not in STEM. I work with plenty of STEM students. I've worked with students in neuroscience and in psychology and in economics and all these different fields that have received funding, but that is not my area of expertise. Bonnie does have a background in STEM, but together we're able to work with our students on these applications and then balance our feedback, our suggestions with their faculty's feedback and suggestions, where they can get more of that technical knowledge to make sure that you are getting both, the perspective of someone in your field, the perspective of someone outside your field, just to make sure your application is as compelling as possible. Now, we mentioned it's 5 pages of writing for the NSFGRFP application. This is going to be the prompt for your personal statement. And you're going to see at the bottom of this, intellectual merit and broader impacts. We're going to talk in a minute about those two major review criteria. That is what the GRFP is looking for. And so in this statement, you're going to talk about a little bit about your lived experiences, your background, where you come from, and of course, how you maybe came to your passion for the research or the field that you're in, and where do you see yourself going. And then you're also going to have, it's a very long prompt, so I'm not going to read it to you, but you have access to the website. But your second essay, where you're going to be talking about the research project that you're planning to pursue in graduate school. And of course, they're going to be reviewing it for intellectual merit and broader impacts. And so what we mean by that is when it comes to intellectual merit, and these are obviously, this is not a comprehensive list, but just some ideas as what is considered intellectual merit. And so when we're talking about your research essay, so what is the intellectual merit as it relates to your ability to do that research project? Do you have lab experience in that specific area? Have you been recognized for any university or national like fellowships, awards, or recognition for the work that you've done? Do you have very specific programming skills, or other technical knowledge that's going to help you in the pursuit of that? And so that's what they're looking for in the research essay, whereas in the personal statement, that's where it's not necessarily related to the research you're going to do in graduate school, but what other aspects of your experience or your time at Florida State or wherever, if you transferred in, wherever you spent your undergraduate career, what else have you done to bolster your skill set? I've had students in the past that have talked about internship experience or international experiences where they were maybe applying the work that they did, but they weren't in the lab. That can all be fantastic opportunities to include in your essays. Whereas when we're considering broader impacts, again, as it relates to your research project, what NSF is looking for is, okay, so for this research project, maybe how is it interdisciplinary? Like, is it not just furthering your field in chemistry, but is it also impacting the field of psychology or physics or any other field? Or, if this research is being done, it's going to have a very specific positive impact on a very specific group of people or a very specific region, then that's what they're looking for. Whereas if we're thinking about the personal statement, what could be the broader impact of someone like yourself with the background that you have pursuing the field of study that you're in? Like I kind of mentioned relative to my experience being a first-gen student, like that's something that I could speak to if I was applying to it's very important to me to not just be pursuing this graduate degree and doing this research, but I want to make sure that I'm bringing along other people who maybe face similar challenges to myself, or maybe, I'm just wanting to make these types of opportunities more accessible. Again, there's a lot of different ways to break this down relative to your experience, and that's what we're here to help you do. Just general tips for the application. It's a very dense application, very dense prompts, and we want to make sure that we're addressing as many of these items as possible. So make sure you're going through, reading all of this carefully. Make sure you follow all of their formatting instructions. The GRFP does allow you to break down your essay into different sections. Not to sound ageist in any way, but the people reviewing your applications are likely going to be well into their career. So if we can make that as easy for them to navigate as possible, that's what the NSFGRFP likes to see. It's always important to remember that your reviewers do not know you at all. And so while they may say, if I was applying in the field of physics, I could expect the person reviewing my application is in that field, but they may not have my specific area of expertise. And so you want to make sure that you're writing about your research or writing about your experiences in a way that it's tailored to an academic, but it's not so weighted down by jargon that it's unapproachable for someone even in your field. Something else to remember is this workshop is happening this Saturday, and it's being led by I think both of the Lemons, Dr. Lemon and Dr. Lemon on campus. Okay. And so, yes, I know this is on a Saturday. Yes, I know this is the weekend of the LSU game. Yes, I know it starts at 8 in the morning. And so I know waking up early on a Saturday at all does not sound appealing. But the people that are leading this workshop, and this is the second link that I want everyone to have at the end of this presentation. The people leading this workshop are absolutely fantastic at the job that they do in breaking down this application, helping you synthesize your research. And this goes to what I was saying earlier, where you can balance, meeting with Bonnie and myself to review your applications with meeting people who may be in your specific discipline, who can give you more technical knowledge about the application. And they are, play a significant role in churning out NSFGRFP applicants year after year after year. And the Lemon specifically, among many other faculty on campus, are also instrumental when it comes to our Goldwater applicants, our Hollings applicants, our NSFREU applicants. So these people know this process. So I would, if you can't tell, strongly encourage you to give up one Saturday on a long weekend, one Saturday morning on a long weekend to attend that workshop in King 1024. So you can attend it in person, but I believe through that link as well, if you need to attend virtually, it had the option. I don't know if they will allow it, but okay, Bonnie's saying no, but you can at least maybe express your interest and they may politely tell you, unfortunately, you need to come in person. So I do apologize. Did not mean to lead you astray. And so that is, I know that's a lot for the NSFGRFP. And so we're not going to spend as much time on each of these individual fellowships, but this is just to kind of go to show, if you can start early and start working on this GRFP application, you can take a lot of what you're writing and apply it to these different applications, which I don't believe are going to ask you for that same 5-page, like massive type of writing, but they're going to break it down into smaller chunks. But this first opportunity for the Department of Energy Computational Science Graduate Fellowship, this is also for seniors. So you can apply this year, or you can apply in the first year of your graduate program. So again, it's kind of like that, like the GRFP, that 2-for-1 chance to receive funding for graduate school. So always apply early if you can. This has a bit more of a narrow focus when it comes to field of study. So physical, computer, mathematical, or life sciences using mathematical and computing techniques and research and da-da-da-da-da. So if that is you, this could be a really excellent opportunity. Obviously, the GRFP selects up to 2,500. This is clearly a much smaller pool, but casting a wide net when it comes to these types of fellowships is really important. And I mean, the same goes when you're applying to graduate school. But sorry about that. And so this one is going to be up to 4 years, $45,000 yearly towards tuition fees and expenses. And it does have a research practicum over the summer at one of their 21 laboratories. And so because this one is due in January, if you're able to work on and apply for the GRFP in October, again, you have months to modify that application to then submit it for this opportunity as well. So we also have through the National Defense Science and Engineering Graduate Fellowship, that NDSEG, I can't remember how they pronounce the acronym, NDSEG, but this is for people that are interested in working for the Department of Defense or furthering the mission of the Department of Defense. It's important to note that it does not require previous or after, if you were to receive the fellowship, any military service before or after this opportunity. This is just another governmental funded opportunity where they are wanting to increase the number of people doing research in these eligible fields. It is a 3-year package. It's $3,400 per month, covers educational costs and an insurance allowance as well. This is due shortly after the NSFGRFP. So if you did want to apply to this one, you would be working on them concurrently. But again, that's something we can manage. Now, the Ford Foundation has so many excellent opportunities for funding, and it's one that AGFA upstairs has been very consistently successful in producing Ford recipients over the years. So we are more than happy to work with you, Bonnie and myself, but we can also put you in contact with Dr. Adrian Stevenson upstairs, who knows this opportunity very, very well. We'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. But Ford's mission is they obviously want to provide funding for graduate study, but they really want to diversify faculty across the United States. And so if you are specifically interested in pursuing research in graduate school, ultimately become a faculty member, to be working for a university, then Ford could be a really great opportunity for you. They have opportunities for pre-doctoral applicants, dissertation applicants, and postdoctoral applicants. So again, this is one you can apply to early in your career, or you can apply to it later on in your career, but definitely something to keep in mind. This one is due in December, so again, a little bit later. So again, if you're, just to reiterate, NSFGRFP would very easily segue into this opportunity as well. And it's open to a lot of different fields of study. Make sure you go to your website, and if you are eligible, make sure to consider this one as well. The Hertz Foundation, again, for seniors or first-year graduate students, but this one is where, like, the NSFGRFP would allow you to pursue a master's degree. Hertz is specific to pursuing a PhD in either applied physical and biological sciences, mathematics, or engineering. Again, the number of recipients for this one is very small, but it's about balancing all these opportunities, like we've been continuing to say. Great funding opportunity. FSU actually has not had a Hertz recipient yet, so we would love for you to be the first. But it's one that we don't get that many students applying to on a yearly basis, and partly because I think it's just not as well known as some of the other opportunities like the NSFGRFP. We won't spend too much time on this, but this is just to really reiterate that everything is going to be due sooner than you think when it comes to graduate school applications, fellowships, and for example, one of the awards that we didn't really focus on at the very beginning, Fulbright, is one that you actually apply a full year in advance of when you would start. So make sure that you're never waiting until the last minute or a month before the deadline to start considering this application or any of these applications, because it's going to directly impact the quality of your work. And while I believe many of you, and I've worked with students in the past who are able to put an application and do all the writing, say in a month, they have a lot harder time getting the letters of recommendation, because when you're just relying on yourself, you know, like some procrastination is the best motivation is the, you know, that common quip, and I get that, but it's not the same when it comes to the people supporting you and your faculty. So make sure at the very least, you know, multiple months ahead of when this application is due, you're contacting ONF or OGFA, you're contacting your faculty, you're contacting anyone that is going to help you in this process just to get them on board, and then we can just focus on the writing. And we want to always make sure that when we can, that we are submitting this application as early as possible relative to the deadline. It doesn't happen often, but websites have crashed day of the deadline. So if we can always set, you know, even if it's just a few days or, you know, a week in advance to get your application in, would always prefer to do that. And the earlier that you can develop your essays and your drafts, the earlier you can get it to your recommenders, the earlier they can incorporate that information into your letters and get it back to you. So again, just start early. So this is going to be our contact information. You can also follow us on social media. We're posting about our workshops or our guest speaker series. We'll post you know, student highlights, you know, and so make sure that you follow us or reach out to us if you have any questions or would like to set a one-on-one meeting. You can just email if you would like to. It's just onf .fsu.edu, or if you would like to email us individually, this is our contact information. Again, Jesse, Bonnie, but Christine or Dr. Filer would be more than happy to sit down and chat with you about some of these opportunities as well. Got through that in kind of 30 minutes flat. So plenty of time for questions. I would love to, you know, feel free to type in the chat or unmute yourself if you do have a question. Would love to answer those. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate you being here with us virtually, and we hope to hear from you soon.